Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Today, a treat especial, the beloved tool of mill wrongs everywhere, second only to the 6-foot snipe. It's the Kito, made in JA pen, 1/2 ton, come along, 500 kgs. I can tell you, when you give this what for, it gives her a lot more than 500 kgs. Now these are skookum as frig. You can get the backdoor reach around from the Princess Auto Power Fister, rebadged Chinese version of this for about 150 bucks. However, have I got a deal for you. Let me weave you a tale of industrial buggery. I done called Ackland Granger, groveling, you know, I work for so-and-so, but it's a cash deal. How much can you get me one of these things for? I think they list for 600 Canadian pesos, 600 Canadian pesos. Buddy over there, cut you a deal. You come in, on account and pay cash, you get it for 550. 550 bucks, mind. So I figure, well, I'll just wait until I go back to the office and give him the old double Dutch rudder. So I calls up Backlands and I give him the whole routine. This is King Shit of Turret Island working for Omni Evil Corp. I need P&D on quantity 200 of these Kito LX055s. See what kind of pricing I could get, right? I got list less 25. So that's still pretty friggin' pricey. Next step was on company time, mind. Mama didn't raise no fool. The old hunt and pecker routine on the gargler. The usual suspects, right from Japan City, 150 bucks delivered. And this thing, you know, it's not heavy, but it does have some gravity in it. So there you go. If you want one of these, you can pay exactly the same as you would, well, maybe a little bit more than you would pay at the Horror Fright. However, you're getting the actual Kito. Now, do I have a moral and ethical dilemma about going right direct to the source instead of going through a myriad of middlemen and getting taxed on that each time? No, I don't, because industrial customers are not going to buy online. They're going to buy from Ackland Granger or whoever supplies these, and they're going to pay through the nose. But you and me, Joe Public, they don't want to fucking deal with anyway, because look at me. I'm an idiot. Nobody in their right mind wants to deal with Joe Public. Industrial suppliers deal with industry, and Joe Schmoes off the street get treated like Joe Schmoes off the street. So you know what? Fuck them. As a corollary to that, people say to me all the time, oh, just go to McMaster Car and order the parts direct from McMaster Car. You cannot, I cannot, as Joe Public, get an account with McMaster Car in Canada. They're closed to Canadians. And if you had an industrial account previous to them closing that off, I think you're okay. But new accounts, you're fucked. McMaster Car is dead to me. So for the ever loving love of Jesus, please stop telling me to go to McMaster Car. Right off the bat, at the risk of painting Japanese industry with a wide brush, fit and finish on any Japanese gear that I've come across, and it doesn't matter if it's a Mitsui bulk handling crane or a Kito chain hoist. Fit and finish is fucking perfect. So you see this. Now these are the first things to come off. OSHA safety guys don't like these coming off, but they're a pain right in the cunning linguals. However, if you look at the cheapo ones, the offshore ones, this little tab is it's like a little piece of pot metal, and it's always bent, and it gets all fucked right out of her, clustered right up, and you can never get the Jesus strap on, and you know, you're hanging off. Yeah. Anyway, this is a nice skookum latch. It's a little too magnetic to be any kind of stainless. Yeah. So, gotta be chrome, some sort of chrome cobalt, nickel. Yeah, nickel, I bet you. Nickel electroplating. Looks to be about 5 millimeters, maybe. You wouldn't believe how strong this stuff is. Yeah, 4.4. So that'd be 4 millimeter chain. Working load is like 0.6, if I'm 0.6 and some change of a ton. That's working load. So this, you know, 10 times that and you probably wouldn't break it. 6,000 kgs, I bet you. Of course, it's abrasion resistant too. These things get flung around and thunderfucked, so they gotta be tough. Oh, and look at that. Even got some data on there. Now, I don't read Japanese. Little tip, if you're wondering if it's Korean or Chinese or Japanese, Korean doesn't have these little squiggles and neither does Chinese. So if you see that little sideways E, you know it's Japanese. Like if you're in the sushi place and you're wondering if they're Japanese or Korean, look for some certificates or whatever that's got that. So look at this. I believe that says 31 kg pull, so 60 pounds pull will give you, on the lever here, will give you half a ton. And then the chain is actually 4.3 millimeters, so even stronger, probably 3/4 of a ton working load. I think we massaged her enough here on the bits we can see. We're going to get into the meat of her. One thing I do not like, this handle. Pretty chintzy feeling, and it just looks like one of those old Craftsman ratcheting box ends. Must have a contractor that supplies these. And then this is that butylene overmold compound, that thermoset plastic rubbery stuff. Well, that's interesting. One on either end. She's a double ender. On the subject of which, I got a nice message from a lesbian couple who enjoy these Vajeos. Now, I welcome you gentlemen into the shop, but that's more for situational awareness. I know there's a couple ladies out there that are watching, but I want you to know that you are in my shop, and I will swear. So, you know, you got to have a little situational awareness. As far as lesbians, I mean, they love me. I eat what they eat. Just, luckily, I got a good grip on me. I'll just slide this rubber off. Oh, that's better. Oh, neat. Chrome vanadium, US patent. 31197. So, Google /patents/US 5119701. And this will come right up. Might even put that in the Vajeo for you. Or not. Well, it's interesting that a strictly Japanese tool would have a US patent on the handle. Look at that. Look familiar? That's just a box end wrench. It's a 24, 25, 26, 30 seconds. That's 13/16. Maybe a little bit over that 13/16. So that'd be 1920, but right around 21 millimeters. There you go. If you ever need a 21 millimeter wrench, and you're in a deli of a pickle. Here we got the ubiquitous powdered metal parts. So this is a sintered metallic powder, steel, and they press it in a mold and then heat it up in the oven, allow for some shrinkage, and no machining at all involved. There's the clutch there, and the clutch face. A lot of guys will grease these up, sort of reduces your load holding, but and it really doesn't help. You jam it on there so hard that it's even harder to get loose. So if you see some old cuss going and greasing up your clutches, yeah, well, what are you gonna do, right? But yeah, it's no good. Just leave it dry, man. Leave it dry. That's a real thick left hand thread on, or left hand. No, it's a right hand thread. It's real coarse, and it's multi-start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 start. Crazy. So that there is a special nut. So let's have a closer look at this. This is what's actually holding your load, not the hand. Focus, you fuck. Fuck. Okay, there we go. This is a forged nut. You can tell by the surface finish, and then it's been phosphated, and you can see, you see that there? Yeah, it's been run in a CNC lathe and then threaded as well in the same CNC lathe. Multi-start. That's a tough, that's an expensive part there, and it's forged, so you know it's damn good. Skookum. There's the friction clutch there. You can see some metallic particles in there. It looks like a typical low heat friction material. Now here's the ratchet and pawl. P-A-W-L, not P-A-U-L. I can't spell for shit. And it's interesting to me that this gear, let's see how hard it is first. Oh, it's actually soft. It's very soft, surprisingly. But this hasn't been broached. It hasn't been punched out. It's been turned on the OD, and then if you look, you can see grinding marks, abrasive grinding marks. So they've gone ahead and, I don't know if they do a whole, gang these up and then do a whole crap load at a time or what, but I assume broaching to some extent would create a sharp edge or even a round over there that they don't want, because that's a bearing surface. That's a friction surface, and that's not a sintered powdered metal gear. That's probably burned at it well. Burned and turned. So I'm going to show you an interesting difference. This is the basal platen that bears on the other side of the friction disc. Focus, you mother fluxing. There we go. You can see this has been broached, and there's a lip here, real sharp, curled over lip. And that's what you don't want. That almost looks, for all the world, like a nut for a grinder. Now here's an interesting shortcut that I really didn't expect. Instead of having a more skookum spring, they just doubled them up, paralleled the springs to get the amount of spring tension out of them. That surprises me, actually. I would have thought they'd spec the proper size. And here we go, powdered metal pawl here. I guess it is only 500 kgs. I would prefer to see a forged pawl, I think. Well, yeah, not I think, I know. I would much prefer a forged pawl. And you say, oh yeah, well, they make automotive parts and yada yada yada. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Hey, why do they make Crosby shackles forged and not at a powdered metallic? You know, same thing, lifting application, powdered metallic gear. So that was the clutch and ratchet mechanism. Now we're getting into the chain guide and drive mechanism. Spacers. Now these were just round stock, but they are finished nicely, and then almost nitride. Looks like a nitride coating. Why they would nitride that, I don't know, but it's, I guess because it's part of the wearing section. I betcha, because it bears against the chain at some points, you know, it rubs, and these are made for abrasion. There's the chain guide, and that's, let's see. And you listen to that, that's actually hardened. That makes sense because the chain bears against that. You wouldn't want that wearing through. And again, it's been nitrided. That's a super hard and tough coating. And here we have the pinion for the actual drive mechanism. This, remember, we put the handle on here through this drive nut. And this is what actually drives the chain. Now this is a beautiful part. You're never going to break this in a million years. Look, I mean, look at the details on this. So we have a hardened gear here, or I assume it's hardened, yeah. Skates right across. You're bearing on this with a lever 6 inches long. You're just never going to break it. This is the chain guide here. We can see they've hobbed this worm gear here, and then I don't know if this would be knurled out and then hardened, or if it's actually been broached, but pretty intensive machining on this little guy here. And that's hard as a coffin nail as well. Oh wow, 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 cool. We can see here that gray moly grease. As these chains, if you send these in to somebody to get rebuilt, generally they'll dip them and let them sit in moly lube just to lubricate the chain, and it dries. Well, molybdenum disulfide is a mineral, and it actually dries dry, but it's a greasy platelet type material. So you'll see a dull chain. It'll clean all the rust off and then put a dull gray on it. Here's the chain mechanism, powdered metal gear here. This is another powdered metal part. And we can see the chain drive, and the way that works is it engages each second chain and pulls it through. and two big dog, what would you call that, dog slots, and then the big gear here that actually drives the thing. Now you can see the difference between high speed and low speed. This is a very low speed machine. No bearings to speak of, just bearing surfaces. And there we have another gear, and that's actually been hobbed. It's not a powdered metal gear. I don't see any foundry marks on there, but it's safe to assume it's A390 jelly bean, but a real nice grade. You know, I did some casting, messing around with casting, and the different grades of aluminum really cast differently, like the stuff you buy at the Homeless Despot there. It just, the surface tension is just incredible, and I think the nucleation is terrible as well. But this stuff, that, you know, real fine grains and real fine detail, there's a real art to making nice castings. Now if you wanted to upgrade this only comes with a 5-foot fall, and 5 feet, you know, it's better than nothing, but it's not the greatest. If you had an arts and crafts day at work and you could sneak this onto the order sheet, get yourself some 4.3 millimeter grade 100 chain by 12 millimeter links. You know, if we get a 20-foot crop of that, and then all you got to do is pop the pin out, put the stop link on, Bob's your auntie. You got yourself a custom one. I got to make sure this goes on the right side, I believe. Yeah, because Then I'm going to put this together, and while I'm putting it together, I'm going to try and figure out a way to test it. Okay, gentlemen, let's all take a new direction. We're going to take a little break. An intermission. This guy, Diode Press. This is the beauty of YouTube. You get to look over the shoulder of masters, and even you get to see into other guys' shops, and that's what I really enjoy. Now, I don't know much about art, but I know what I like, and I like this guy. So check him out. He did some art for Saunders Machines. I think you're familiar with him. He does the Tormac CNC vids.
The logo is cut out using a knife edge tool to outline the letters. It cuts at a nice angle to the surface of the wood, so that way it stays supported and doesn't chip off. And then I cleaned it out with a small U-gouge. And then it was just more carving. Lots and lots of carving. The Conrad press was so fun to print on, and it made the whole thing go so much easier. And finally I could peel up my paper and stick it in the drying rack. And I did that about 30 more times and then called it a day. Now before I could sign and number the prints, they need a few days to dry. So I stopped by the hardware store on my way home and put together this rack. And I'll make a future video.
I've been harassing him for nigh on a year to design a t-shirt for us, and he's been putting me off, or is super busy, or fair's fair, the guy thinks I'm a dink and he just wants me to go away. But anyway, here's another poke in his direction. Go and check out his channel. It's very enjoyable, and he's a master at what he does. One thing that's surprising is it's real finicky as to the torque you put on these. If you tighten it right down, it locks right up on you. That's surprising to me, because these spacers should ensure that it's not that tight. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I like that, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. If you know, please let me know, because it doesn't seem right to me that you're not able to crank these right down. Now, how are we going to test this thing? Well, I'm man enough to admit when I got a bad test of the press envy, but you know, 30 tons is okay, and it's not like I need a proxy for something else, if you know what I'm saying. 30 tons is plenty. Zip. Sploosh. Ooh, that's cold. I just got a dead reckon what size gauge. I want the smallest gauge, value gauge I can get to get the most accuracy. You know, I got a 10,000 psi gauge in there now, but I'm not going to get 30 tons out of this. So I'm going to get half a ton times 2. Anyway, That's a 1 ton. 1 times 10,000 divided by 3, that's by 30 tons, that's 300 psi we should see on this. So if I grab a 1000 psi gauge, or maybe if I have 500 or something, that'll do us nicely. Even when you get the right fittings, you get the wrong fittings. Son of a diddly. Anyway, we got her just about to shoot here, just a small matter of busting some knuckles. I gotta say, I've been digging these USA made right nut fuckers. They're actually the same ones that are the Blue Point in the Snap-on truck. Probably about 5 times the cost, but yeah, they're nice slide spanners. Okay. There you go. Oh man, that's not working at all. Must have put something together bass backwards. Oh, color me embarrassed. I guess that last drink did taste like Rufinol. Now, lucky for me, she hasn't been on the healing bench for too long, where to make the disassembly overly taxing. However, once you've been in and out of her once or twice, it only takes half as long to get her where you need to be the second time around, you know what I'm saying? So this didn't take any time at all. Rookie mistake. The live end and the dead end betwixt the thing needs to be bifurcated. Now, whilst I got it apart, I might as well show you how it works, eh? I guess I didn't really. I kind of omitted that part. Yeah, slow us down, but you can't fuck us over, am I right? We'll get her fingered. Okay, so the way this works is a little counterintuitive because you got this nice big gear and pawl here, and you figure that's what's holding the load. It's actually not, because if you look at this, this is free to move on the shaft, and the shaft drives the sheave, which pulls the drive sheave, which pulls the chain. So the only thing transmitting torque, locking that in, are these friction clutches. So in the upwards direction, when we're actually lifting something up, this nut clamps down, and the torque that you put on this clamps it down further, and it locks it together. Then it goes in the ratchet, and all that allows you to do is turn this ratchet backwards. Now in the lower position, that's where the sintered metallic inside gear comes in handy. It rides on the splines of the shaft, the drive shaft. Okay, so when you go to turn backwards, you're loosening off this nut. Now this is free to turn except for the pawl, but what you're actually doing here is you're allowing this whole thing to turn as a unit. This nut locks on the shaft, because otherwise it would just come right off. So there's the raise, there's the lower. And then if you want to go into neutral, there's a detent here. There's a detent and a spring, and this locks in like so that it's in normal mode. But then if you loosen this off, this pops up, this will pop up, and then that will give you enough clearance to back this nut off, and now the shaft is free of the pawl and it can just freewheel. Just freewheel. There we go. Just like that. So essentially, the takeaway from this is, when you're reefing on this and you let it go, it's not the pawl that's actually holding it, the click click. It's actually those little fiber discs, those little friction clutches. That's what's holding your load. So if you grease that up, you're not going to have nearly, not even close to the same capacity, because you're relying on the friction between the steel and the friction material. Okay, once again for the second time, nothing we can't fix though, boys. We're going to see how much force this thing will put out. Well, we got some leakage out of the fitting, so that's no good, but well, 300 psi. So let's do the calc. Now, here's the beauty of working in Imperial units. It works especially well for hydraulics. Maybe not for everything, but for hydraulics, it's the cat's ass. King shitted turd island here. 4.56 inch squared is the effective area of the cylinder. So 4.5 times 300 psi. What is that? 1350. 1350. But there's two sides to this chain. Divide that. That's 675. 675 pounds is putting out. And that's as hard as I can pull it. So I'm surprised it's not actually higher. Because I would have thought they underrated this. That's 675, 2.2. Yeah, that's not much at all. We're running around 300 kgs a pull. Wow. The chain can do a hell of a lot more than that. The problem is the 200-pound gorilla on the end of the lever there. Might have to get a 6-foot snipe to get it rated. She's pretty tight, like a cummerbund at a king crab feast. Yikes. I wouldn't want to go messing with that too much. Anyway, thanks for watching. Keep your stick clean to entice. Yikes. Now, I know you guys want me to pump up this 30-ton cylinder just to see how much she'll suffer, but I just can't do it, man. The thing's a beauty and it's brand new. Give me a couple months at least.